the penetration of insurance in Pakistan is one of the lowest, not only globally, but also in this region as well. So our non-life penetration is, say, less than 0.3% of the GDP, which when you compare with the global averages, which is upward of 7.5%, so it's extremely, extremely low. And effectively what this means is a overwhelming majority of our population, say around 98, 99%, does not have any financial protection available. The way I'm looking at it, the pricing for a normal shop, they should be able to buy a decent cover in 400 to 500 rupees per month, right? So that's not a
400 to 500 rupees
per month. That's not a very huge amount. And for the safety component, we are going to be demonstrating that. We are not going to be only asking them to improve the rate. We'll be demonstrating that by investing 10% or 5% of the premium that has been generated from that unit within to improve the risk there.
Jubilee General Insurance itself send people to fix the wiring in the shop. That's all.
Absolutely.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Money. I'm your host Fatima Attarwala. Gul Plaza happened not too long ago, but when I see it online, when I see the influences, when I see the public sentiment as editor of Business and Finance, when I see the headlines, the sympathy and the memory of it is already dying. And I think that is something that recurs in Pakistan a lot. We have the floods, we have the earthquake, there's a lot of sympathy, there's a lot of outcry, and then silence until the next disaster. Because we are more reactive, and when something happens, we have sympathy, we are together, we need to do something, and then we kind of forget about it. We get desensitized. So the topic for today is insurance, which is one aspect through which you can be preemptive and prevent disasters, or at least mitigate once the disasters happen, rather than the disasters happen and there's a hue and cry and then everybody forgets. For that purpose, our guest today is Azfar Arshad, CEO of Jubilee General Insurance and former chairman of the Insurance Association of Pakistan. Hello, sir. Welcome to my show.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It is great to have you because, as I said, fires happen, earthquakes happen, floods happen, people get displaced, people lose their livelihood. There is some token outreach by the government, some amount that might sound big. But when you talk about building a house or rebuilding the business, the few 100,000 is hardly sufficient. So the purpose of our discussion today is how insurance can play a role in mitigating those disasters in terms of finance. And given that this is Pakistan and nobody really trusts insurance companies, how do you address that trust deficit?
So yeah, I think you raised a couple of interesting points. I think the first thing is I would like to say it's a very disappointing, And this incident that you mentioned about Gul Plaza, every one of us who lives in Karachi, have some form of relationship or emotional attachment with Gul Plaza, a place that I think a lot of people who live in Karachi have at some point or time in their life visited. So there's a lot of emotional connection there, and to see that place go up in flame was quite, it was a hard burn, right? So, but the unfortunate part is, this is not a one-off incident, right? You also mentioned that incidents like this have a tendency of recurring, not only in Karachi, and over the last 2-3 years, if you see the number of such incidents that have happened, Millennium, it's happened in Sadr, it's happened in Tariq Road, Jodia Bazaar, stuff like that. Even outside of Karachi, in Lahore, we're seeing a lot of examples over the last 2-3 years. Hafiz Center happened, Base happened, Islamabad as well, So, and whenever these incidents happen, you rightly said that, there's an outcry and there's a sympathy which comes in. But unfortunately, over a period of time, then everything goes back to normal. And then these people are left to the mercy of, number one, the government and other philanthropy organizations, because they don't have an institutional or a financial structure or mechanism which can allow them to, come back to the same position. And yes, insurance is basically one of those, instruments which are available and globally used for people to recover from such incidents. And by the way, Pakistan is one of those countries which are extremely vulnerable to not only man-made events because of our lack of safety measures, but also you talk about natural events as well, floods, earthquakes, we see them also recurring on a regular basis. So yes, insurance is a very strong instrument. Unfortunately, uh, the penetration of insurance in Pakistan is one of the lowest, not only globally, but also in this region as well. So our non-life penetration is, say, less than 0.3% of the GDP, which when we compare with the global averages, which is upward of 7.5%, so it's extremely, extremely low. And effectively, what this means is a overwhelming majority of our population, say around 98, 99%, does not have any financial protection available. So whenever a calamity of this nature hits, there's no recourse. And the people involved, unfortunately, fall below the poverty line. Why this is the case? That next logical question that you asked for, and there's a number of reasons, a number of challenges, and I'll come to some of them later. Trust is one area that I think you mentioned. Yes, that's one critical area where people do not have the full confidence, because insurance is basically a promise, a contract and a promise that if such an event happens, then the uh, contract will help you recover from that. And that trust factor is unfortunately not there. And I tell you, it's not because of lack of addressal of that contract, because if you look at the numbers, you see that according to the SSCP insurance report, in 2024, the industry together, I'm talking of life and non-life combined, they underwrote a premium of, premium and contribution of 650 billion rupees. Whereas the benefits and claims that were paid in 2024 by the industry, again combined, was close to 599 billion. So in that sense, almost 600 billion, was paid out. But I think where the industry lacks very well is in terms of, marketing that, for lack of a better word, or announcing that this, I think, you'll hardly see any, ads or any campaigns of insurance companies being run to educate the people that, such and such payment were made. So that's one area. And the other area is, I think, the process. That is an area where I think the industry needs to look at. Maybe the process currently is very cumbersome. That when I say the process, I'm meaning that from the time the event happens till the time a settlement happens, if it's going to take months or in certain cases even weeks, I think that may not be good enough. I think that's an area where the industry needs to look at to see how this process can be curtailed so that the payment is done at the earliest. So that is when. So these are the two areas that I think addresses the trust deficit.
So, I mean, 650 billion worth of premium in 2024, of which nearly 600 billion were doled out as insurance claims. So, yes, one would expect people to believe in insurance. But when you look at popular media, when you look at movies, the insurance is always the bad guy, just like the banker is the bad guy. But then Pakistan does not have a very high rate of financial inclusion. People do not have access to credit lines. One of the reasons being lack of documentation. And if you're talking about Gul Plaza, they are part of the informal economy. They're not paying taxes. They do not want to pay taxes, which is why they are not documented. How would you offer such a sector insurance without documentation?
So, if you ask me, that's the challenge. That's one of the reasons why I think the insurance penetration is extremely low, especially in the SME and the retail sector. There are a number of challenges. There's religious considerations, there are economics as well, there's some cultural, of course, issue as well. Awareness is one of them. I think financial maturity. I think the segment which is mostly involved in the SME are not financially mature enough to understand the intricacies of any financial contract. So, and documentation. Documentation is, I think, a very major pain point. There are various estimates. Some say that maybe the size of our informal economy is perhaps as big as our formal economy as well. And most of these areas, especially when you talk of shops, agriculture, retail, they are in the informal segment. And documentation is on a conventional level, that goes to the heart of any financial contract, and insurance is no different, right? So if claim happens, then you have to obviously establish the presence of assets, from where it was procured, how it was sold, the profits and stuff like that. So yes, that's a very major, I would say, pain point or stumbling blocks where people are not very keen in procuring insurance, and frankly, the industry. When I say the industry, I mean ourselves included, has up till now not been able to address some of these pain points, right? And I feel that unless these pain points are to be addressed, we will continue to remain in the same, position. So one way of looking at it is to wait for things to improve, for things to become documented, for risk management to improve, right? For the awareness to improve, and that may take perhaps another 30 years, and we will have several Gul Plazas in the wake. And I don't think that's a very, that's the right way to go. I think what the industry needs to come up with is, having identified the pain points, are there any solutions? You know, can we design even a basic product, which can address some of the pain points that we discussed, the trust factor as well as the documentation factor. I think this is where work needs to happen, and the industry, the leadership that is currently there, I think they needs to put their heads together to see if something can be done to address this pain point, and not wait for everything to fall in order for the insurance penetration to improve.
So when I have bankers on my show, and one of the questions I always ask the bankers is, see, most of the credit goes to the government. The government is the biggest borrower, which is why the private sector gets squeezed out. Their point is, see, if we lend to the SME sector, what legal redressal do we have? Say somebody declares bankruptcy, you say, I cannot pay, what will I do? I had I'm at a business finance, somebody wrote this, one of the CEOs of the bank wrote this in this article, that he went to such a shop who had declared bankrupt. It didn't look like a shop that was going bankrupt. And then the shop next to it was paying the interest and all that. But then he saw, okay, my fellow retailer is declaring bankruptcy. No, he doesn't have to pay the same amount of interest. He's gotten a haircut. Why should I pay the full amount? And then there's no legal redressal to that. So given that ecosystem, there's not a lot of appetite for the SME sector, for financial credit to the SME sector. Now, I looked at some of your numbers. I looked at your bottom line for the last few years, your profit after tax. And the profit after tax in 2022 was 1.5 billion. Currently, in 2024, it was 3.5 billion. So clearly, with your investments, everything, Jubilee Insurance is doing well. Why are you going after the SME sector? What is it in it for you?
So I think, I mean, what's in it for us is basically, the question is, do we want to continue the way we are and only have this insurance penetration of 0.3% and have more than 98% of the population outside this financial umbrella? I mean, but our decision is no. I think what we want to do is to basically reach out to the masses and because currently, we talk about this 600 billion claims, and why people do not know about this is, most of this claim and benefits are going to the big businesses. They're going to the textiles, the sugars, and the banks, and the pharmaceuticals, the FMCGs, the consumer electronics, and no one knows about it, right? Because a lot of this benefit is not going to the masses because they don't have this product and cover. So for the industry to grow and for us to be able to make any difference, for our country to start prosper, I think it's absolutely critical and important that we are able to take this insurance coverage and protection to the grassroots level, to the farmers of the country, to the shopkeepers of our country, to the retail of the country. And basically this is what the effort is, right? And obviously it's very challenging, and our challenge is not very different from the challenge that you mentioned for the banking sector. This is basically what the challenge is. Documentation is one of the major challenge, and that's the reason why the lending to the SME is only a very fraction of the total private sector lending, right? And obviously there are a lot of focus from the state bank and from the major banks. How do they lend? And one of the reasons why they're not able to lend is documentation, and the other is lack of insurance coverage as well, because a bank will not lend to anyone if it does not have a recourse of covering it for natural calamities, for man-made calamities. So I think again, the effort that we are trying to make here to ensure that there's at least a product available, that also goes well in the bigger picture. If you want to increase the financial inclusion, if you want to reduce the protection gap that the country currently faces, otherwise we'll continue the way we are for the last 75 years. I mean, we are not. If you look at the hierarchy of nations, if you compare us with some of the other nations in our region and abroad as well, you see Pakistan is lagging behind, and one of the basic reasons is we have not been able to increase the net of financial protection and financial inclusion in a vast majority of our population. So if things have to change, I think the current leadership in the financial sector will at least start to think on ways of how to address these problems.
Okay, so I think we have a general consensus among stakeholders. We have the government, we have bankers, we have industry leaders such as you wanting increase in financial inclusion for the masses. We have the masses themselves wanting to be financially included. But a small market like Gul Plaza, which as important as it is, was a small market within a very large city. That market alone would have hundreds of shops. There are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of SMEs across Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad alone. How do you reach out to them?
So yeah, I think the importance of SMEs is, they are the backbone of any economy. They may not be outside the financial system, but they provide the fuel that runs on which the big business basically runs. Reaching out, yes, I think that's a challenge. What we have done is looking at this and looking at the pain points. We have designed what we call a new product. We're calling it Dukaan Hifazat. It's not a typical insurance product in the sense that it doesn't follow the direct principles of indemnity. It has a component of parametric solution built into that, which basically means the happening of an event will trigger that. So that's a parametric product based on fire. So the moment a fire happens, irrespective of the cause of that, whether it's a short circuiting, whether it's arson or anything else, the moment the fire is established, then the payout will become immediate. And then we have made these small units. We call it unitized products. So the unit will be of 5 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees, and you can buy multiple units of that. So for a bigger shop, they can buy 5 or 6 units. For smaller shops, they can buy 1 or 2 units, depending on the market size, depending on the occupation, the nature of products that have been sold there. So the whole idea is to make it very simple. So if you have a unit of ₹1 million and God forbid there's an incident, you get an immediate payout of ₹1 million, hopefully within 48 hours of that incident. The next question is, how do you market it, right? So obviously it's not going to be feasible if we are going to market it in the conventional manual way. So what we are doing is we're talking to associations, we are talking to corporations, right? So all of these, SMEs, they operate under an umbrella. Either there's a trade body or there's an association of a building where, tens of 50s or hundreds of thousands of shops are made. So we'll be talking to them and we'll be selling this as part of an overall coverage rather than individual coverage. So maybe even 20 or 30% of that population agrees to get that cover, we'll have that within the insurance program. So this is our primary mode of marketing. Then we'll also be using digital mediums as well. We'll be monetizing that in the form of a card, which will be available in all the markets. So anyone who wants to buy a market can just buy that card, scratch it, and then enroll themselves via sending an SMS on a WhatsApp on a given number. So this is and we'll be talking to trade associations and markets all over. And this is not only in Karachi, this is all over Pakistan, that our teams are now currently discussing and negotiating this product with a number of such associations. This is the way we need to, and we certainly hope that once this thing goes out and there's a good uptake and other players also join in. So because a single company cannot cover the entire country, and we need more than one company, all the big boys in the insurance sectors to basically come in and try to address this very, very important critical problems.
So I have 2 follow-up questions on that. Firstly, you said that you'll be going to the associations and the bodies. Now, with the cost of living, with inflation, with the decreasing purchasing power, even shopkeepers, their margins are squeezed. So for them to be able to afford insurance at the time that they do not have access to financial credit lines, that would be a tough step. So if you're talking about group insurance, like 20% of the people in, say, shops in mobile market in Karachi, would that decrease the cost of insurance for them?
Yes, I think what you're referring to is basically pricing. It's very critical that the pricing is affordable, right? And that's the reason why we're talking for a pool, because the larger the size of the pool, the more economic the pricing can be. So what we are targeting, if we have a substantial pool size, the way I'm looking at it, the pricing for a normal shop, they should be able to buy a decent cover in 400 to 500 rupees per month, right? So that's not a
400 to 500 rupees per month.
per month. That's not a very huge, but for them, obviously, the numbers will have to be. It can't be done on an individual basis. So if you can buy a cover of 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, or even 30 lakhs at this rate, that is something which is, at least from the affordability perspective, it's very affordable, because most of these shops, when they form these associations, the annual monthly contribution is 1500 or 2000 rupees. So this 400 to 500 rupees is a very small component, and considering the benefit that this is going to provide, I think that should not be an issue. So from the financial perspective, I think it's going to be a product which is going to be easily available and easily obtainable as well.
No, 300 400 rupees is something even the Reri wala outside Bori Bazaar selling chocolate, even he would be able to afford 300 400 rupees per month. But then we are talking about, you said units like 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs for 300 400 rupees a month. I mean, the maths is not really adding up. How will you make that work financially for you?
So yeah. So the idea basically is if we are able,
Especially if the crisis is like a fire in Gul
Yeah,
Plaza when
yeah.
all the shops go.
Yes, absolutely. And you can talk, for example, if you're talking of a shopping center like Gul Plaza, which had, they're saying, close to 1,000 shops or 1,200 shops, even a 1 million rupee cover would mean like 1.2 billion, 120 crore rupees.
And 300
Yes,
400, even
yes.
if you have 1,000 shops in that's peanuts.
That's peanut. So, but that is basically the principle of large numbers. If you are able to, because if you are able to sell this in a large, pay to a large number of associations and shops all over the country, so this is basically where the insurance pool is going to come up. Yes, there will be expect losses to happen. We'll have a protection at the back end, which normally insurance companies do. They do pay planes of billions of rupees against premiums of runnings into hundreds of thousands of rupees. So that's basically what our business is, and that's what our business model is. And basically, what we're not looking at this segment as a very major profit churning enterprise. That's not the idea, because that's not going to work. What's going to work is if you're able to devise an affordable product. And to me, I think a 400 to 500 rupee product is something which is should be very affordable. As you said, even a small shopkeeper is something should be able to arrange and manage that. So the idea is, the only way this is going to work is if we have large numbers, right? And that is basically what the idea is. This is what we're trying to do, to have those numbers, and hopefully that should be able to help us, cover events like Gul Plaza.
As in terms of market share, off camera, you mentioned that we had EFU, we had RMG, and then we had you. So you are in the top three, right?
Yeah.
In terms of your market share is about 12.5%. Now we are talking 500 rupees worth of coverage for thousands of shops, tens of thousands of shops all across the country, in which the unit of payout could be 500,000. Now this is something that does need crowds. It needs all the major markets across Pakistan to be involved, and across major players, not just Jubilee General Insurance, but EFU, RMG, all the big players to get involved. Only then would this make financial sense. Is this an association push? Is this a regulatory push? Or is this something that you feel as an important player in the ecosystem that you're coming up with this?
So, I mean, this is something that at this stage we are coming up with, right? Because we feel that, it's no longer, sufficient for companies, who are doing business, who are enjoying some form of, financial muscles as well, to sit idle. I think we need to do things in a different way, right? Apart from the conventional way. Coming back to your question, I think yes, we are talking to SECP. I've had a offline discussion with them. I've shared the concept with them. Of course, they love it. Everyone loves it, right? And we would need support, obviously, from the regulator. We would also need support from the government whenever that is come, because if they can obviously push that and make that as part of their requirement in some of rules and regulation, that will be a major push. But what we are not going to do is wait for this to happen. We will start with this push, and this, I think, one of the reasons, and thank you for inviting us here, is to basically, go out, at least put this concept out in the open, see people what the feedback is from people, who are aware of this, and see how this can be improved. So whilst we will work simultaneously with our association, with the other major players, and encourage them to participate, but we will not wait for things to fall in order, because this is what we have been doing for the last 75 years, right? So we'll make our push. To what extent we'll succeed at this point, I don't know, frankly, if you ask me. But what I do know is not doing anything is not an option. That's basically the thought that is basically pushing us to venture into this seemingly difficult and dangerous task.
Do you have a timeline of when you intend to launch this product?
We are actually at this stage talking. Our teams are talking to a number of potential markets, not only in Karachi but in Lahore. We're starting this with 4 major cities: Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and Multan. We're talking to associations there, trying to get the feedback. We'll be doing this over the course of Ramadan as well, and we hope to start getting the feedback and hopefully make a few breakthroughs within the next, I think, 30 days. We'll also be launching out a campaign on social media. Our marketing drive will also, continue with this, and we're just going ahead and basically piloting and see what the feedback of the market is. At this stage, I think whoever I've spoken to is shown some positive. There are some surprises that you also came up with. What's going to happen? How are you going to do it? But I think in general, the concept is taken well received.
So when I think about insurance, I think about that childhood ad, "Ae Khuda, mere abbu salamat rahe." And I think insurance as a product for people, not the medical insurance by companies or the auto insurance necessary when you're getting a car loan. That is more life insurance, and that doesn't come under it. So Jubilee General Insurance is not life insurance. So again, it comes down to you are facing a lot of social and cultural barriers. I'm sure nobody in this room would willingly go and insure their house. It's just not done. It's not part of the expenses. We need to pay the electricity bill, the net metering has become net billing, gas, water. So again, if the only way you can convince people of insurance is that small an amount, 500 rupees, that's, peanuts. But then my question is, how will you tackle such a huge cultural and social change, which, as you yourself said, hasn't been done for decades?
Yeah, I mean, insurance is a difficult sell. I mean, insurance is not something that when you get up in the morning and you're preparing a list of things to do. Insurance doesn't figure there, right? So it's a big, and the reason is it's not tangible, right? You don't see something, and it's basically a promise. And yes, I mean, societal, cultural, we have a very firm belief in nature. We have a very belief in God. Allah
things happen for the best,
things happen for the better.
Risk aa jata hai,
things like so which is very good. Tawakkul is obviously very good, but tadbir is also equally important, from the religious perspective as well. So you do tawakkul in Allah,
believe in God, but
then you do tadbir as well. You do some protection as well, and I think the tadbir part is something which hasn't reached out. We have not been able to reach out, and this is the thing that we are trying to address. So yes, another challenge, I think, apart from cultural and social, is obviously the religious as well. There's obviously that concept that maybe, so although that is now should not no longer be a problem, because there is a Islamic insurance product which is available, Takaful. In fact, this Dukan Hifazat product that I've just referred to, that's an Islamic, there's a Sharia compliant product that we have, and we'll be basically marketing that under that framework. So, yes, it's a challenge that the industry faces, and I think if we're able to reach out to the masses and then, demonstrate that things work out, so that trust factor hopefully will it's going to be a long process, it's going to be a long journey, and there's no simple solution. It's not going to be over in 6 months or 12 months. But I think a start needs to be made so that people start seeing this as a necessary, investment. You invest, you diversify your assets. You talk about home insurance. A lot of people do not buy home insurance. That's correct. But when you look at the the incidents that have happened, for example, in Karachi where we live, every second or third year there's this major rain
There are
spell,
floods and
floods
monsoons.
that
Even in
that
defense,
happen.
you have the
So
basements completely
yeah,
flooded.
yeah. So it happens all over
And
the
we're
city.
talking about defense, the richest in Karachi, even their homes are not insured.
Absolutely. So these events happen. Just earlier last year we had this hail incident in Islamabad where lots of houses and lots of solar panels and cars, again got damaged. Again, very low insurance penetration. So incidents happen. I mean, we are one of the, in terms of countries which are most vulnerable to climate change. Pakistan ranks in the top 6. So every year we see these events happening with increasing severity, right? So both the frequency is increasing and severity is increasing. So climate change is, I mean, we are experiencing climate change that happen, and that impacts. And your home is your single largest, for most people, is your single largest investment. And not to have a protection around that, that is, something which should not come naturally. And I think at least we need to put out people. And as you said, if you can develop a simple product even for home, a unit-based product, which by the way there is, it needs to be marketed more robustly. I think we will hopefully see a better update there as well.
As you mentioned, climate change events, almost most people's houses are getting affected more intensely over the years. Has insurance penetration changed over the last 5 years?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, the insurance penetration still remains. It has not changed over the last 30 years. Forget about the last 5 years, right? So we're still at 0.3% and of GDP. So despite these events happening with increasing regularity and increasing frequency and severity, unfortunately, the penetration has not increased much.
So we have telcos bringing in InsurTech, Takaful. We just had a conversation with them recently. They are doing an IPO and they are investing more in insurance. So I think that does seem to be a drive from the industry leaders to increase awareness for insurance. But as you said, it's a long-term. It is a long-term vision. If you can have enough people across Pakistan to be able to offer Hifazat product, and then one market happens, and within 48 hours, which is your promise, if you can give that claim, I think that would be the reason to convince other markets and other cities.
Absolutely. I think when you talk of insurance, I think our product and our service is the claim. I think there's nothing else. I think no marketing campaign, no media, campaign can overdo that. So I think the industry, whenever it gets the opportunity to demonstrate itself, I think that is how it needs to happen. And you rightly said, yes. I think the good thing is companies are now coming up. We are trying to figure out ways of reaching out, and digital is one of the major areas. We ourselves are investing in this quite a bit to see how we can reach out to people and approach them and connect with them and embed products within their own lifestyles. So tying up with telecos, tying up with banks, tying up with e-commerce platforms where people are performing their purchase or procurement journeys. If you can embed product insurance within those journeys, that obviously makes it much simpler. And if you can then also simplify the claim journey, which is, I think, the real pain point, that is by how people will start to realize the importance of insurance and basically gain the necessary trust, which is obviously very critical.
So all that is all well and good. You have these small shops in Gul Plaza, Gulf, Mobile Market. I'm talking in Karachi because we are in Karachi. But then how do you ensure risk management? There are such small shops, there are wires coming from everywhere, exits are blocked, too many people in too small space. So how do you do your due diligence to ensure risk management?
So that's, I think, another major challenge where insurance companies, avoid, offering this product, because, as you rightly mentioned, the risk management condition of some of these, outlets is not very good, right? But again, I mean, the choice that we have is basically wait for things to improve or do something about it. So what we have decided to do is, within this Dukaan Hifazat product, a certain part of the premium, 5% or 10%, will be earmarked for improving safety and resilience. So whatever premium or contribution that we receive from a specific project or show, 10% or 5% of it will go back in improving the safety standards of that complex of that plaza. So be it installation of extinguishers or trolleys, or be it improvement in the wiring, or be it improvement in the housekeeping stuff, so that the risk gets improved, and such losses, the severity of such losses goes back. So within this product, we have built in this improvement of resilience as well, and this will basically be used to educate the market and the clients as well, that they also need to cover to get themselves involved in improving, and the more the shops or the clients improve their risk, I think they will get additional benefits in terms of reduced premiums. But this is the way we are trying to address this risk management issue.
And again, trust comes in. You see these tiny Kriana shows, and they have a second layer. There's the ceiling, and then there's a second layer, and there's a bacha sitting over there throwing bags of everyday or whatever, because they don't have storage. So ensuring safety in such environments,
It's a challenge.
it is going to be a challenge. So first you have to convince them to have insurance, then you have to convince them to improve the safety standards, and then throughout this process you have to ensure that they believe you, they believe the promise that you will have a pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have said it multiple times during the show, the only thing that can prove is when something happens and then you give the insurance claim.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to demonstrate that. And
Yes,
as I said, it has to be demonstrated. And for the safety component, we are going to be demonstrating that. We are not going to be only asking them to improve the rate. We'll be demonstrating that by investing 10% or 5% of the premium that has been generated from that unit within to improve the risk there. We will be
Jubilee General Insurance itself send people to fix the wiring in the shop. That's all.
Absolutely. So the amount that we generate, 10% of whatever we earmark for improving the resilience, that will be used in either improving it or providing them the safety measures or fire extinguishers or trolleys in improving that risk. So we'll be actually demonstrating this rather than just asking them.
So that's an additional incentive for them as well.
Yes, absolutely.
It's definitely going to come and ask you in 2 years what's going to happen and how it happened.
Sure, certainly.
Great.
Look forward to.
Gul Plaza happened, floods happened. There's usually a lot of outcry and no prevention, no preparation. Small units of insurance that is extremely affordable, that can dole out in 48 hours, and that has built into it increased safety measures. It just sounds a bit too good to be true. And as a very cynical journalist, I'm finding it hard to swallow. But if this is implemented, if this does take place, then the financial inclusion of the informal sector or the SME sector could increase, because once you have insurance product, then it's easier to reach out to them through financial inclusion and through credit lines as well. So this product alone has the potential to be revolutionary, but only and only if it's implemented. Hence, 2 years later, we'll do another show and we'll figure out whether this took place or not. Thank you so much for your time.